speak with us.
No worries. I apologize.
No, that's okay. Hey, we've been fans for a long time. I mean, 1984 is when I first heard you guys, and I've been really a huge fan ever since. So it really is a pleasure to speak with you.
Well, thank you very much. I appreciate that. It's a long time, from the very beginning, actually.
Absolutely. Yeah, just awesome. I remember, cruising around in the car, in high school, and we're listening to Knights of the New Thunder and introducing, classmates and stuff to them, to the album, and ever since then, it's great stuff.
It's always fun. I remember doing that with my friends with Judas Priest.
Yeah. That's good stuff.
That's great. Absolutely, yeah.
I was real excited to see you guys. You're putting a new album out, and I do reviews for Frontiers, so I get all the the tracks and everything when we get them in. And how was the recording process, Tom? I know you haven't recorded with Ronnie in about 10 years, and it's going to be great to hear that collaboration again.
Yeah. Are we? I'm sorry, it's off the record. Are we into it now? Are we? Because normally it's like, okay, here we go. So are we into the interview?
We are into the interview. We are.
Okay, cool. Okay. It's been great. The getting together with him. We started over the summer and started just writing. That's always kind of the thing with us, is we like to just get kind of as isolated as we can and get into the right frame of mind and find a private space and just kind of see what comes, and as usual, a lot of good ideas came right away. I brought a lot of titles and lyrics with me, which he was thrilled about because he didn't really have a lot of ideas this time, which is unusual for him. He had a few, and I didn't like all of them. So we just kind of started working from scratch, which, in my opinion, we've written our best songs that way, where neither of us really have much, and we just kind of start playing around with something, and it develops into an idea, and that's kind of how we do it. Now we're into the recording process, fairly far into it, and it's interesting. We lost, some people who really follow the band closely know that we lost our dear friend and longtime keyboard player Doug Stocka back in 2011. He died tragically young at 44 of a rare cancer that he had, and he was really kind of the backbone. When we didn't work with a producer, he was kind of our right hand man, and I definitely am missing him right now, big time. And that's the biggest difference I see when you ask me what it's like to work and write and record with Ronnie. Is I just really miss working with him and having him there, his ears, his talent behind the board, and both as an engineer and a co-producer for us. He was. I don't think I realized at the time what an important factor he played, what an important role he played in the whole process. So producing ourselves is a great thing, but again, what I realized is that it depends who we're working with, who our engineer is with, and so I'm missing him sorely at the moment. So we're working out the details there.
Right, and it's always tough when you lose somebody like that. I mean, it's not only good for the recording process and the comfort level, but it's the friendship as well, the trust.
Well, that was kind of the whole thing. Is he was just, that's really the biggest part of it, was just his personality was just so great to deal with in the studio. He was just so supportive, and so not only did he have great ears and was he a good producer and a good engineer, but it was just really fun to work with. We got work done very quickly, and we were on the same wavelength, and so it went real well. So that's I'm missing him, and we don't often work with a producer. We haven't for a very long time. So this is the first time I've worked with Ronnie with really out having sort of that right-hand man there. And I'm finding it to be, the writing went pretty much as usual. It's the recording that I'm missing someone right now.
Right.
So we're working that out. It's going real well. It's just I miss the guy. So
a slower process, and you've been doing it for so long. I mean, I'm sure the the professionalism obviously, but the quality of the material, it has to be there.
Yeah, the material is great, but really what it comes down to is how is that. I mean, you could have the greatest, coolest song, melodies, chords, arrangement, whatever, but how it gets translated to, the recording is such a big, huge part of it. You can have, I remember, and I've read this kind of story many times, but just off the top of my head, I remember reading about Foreigner recording I Want to Know What Love Is. And I believe they recorded it 2 or 3 times until they got the version that everybody has heard, because they knew they had this epic, important song that would be, probably one of the most important songs, if not the most important song of their career. And if it wasn't recorded properly, it wouldn't translate to the audience. So that's often what happens. I mean, in my opinion, there are a lot of great bands, a lot of great artists who write great songs, and they just don't get represented, the way they should in the final stage. And I really think that's what. That's what bands like Def Leppard really had going for them. Def Leppard, in my opinion. And look, I'm an 80s guy, so I'm not going to wave a big 80s flag. I know that's going to disappoint a lot of my fans, but a lot of TNT fans. But I'm more of I grew up as a 70s rock fan. So if you tell me what's the best rock, that there is, I'm going to say, well, about 1968 through about 1979, 80, are the best years for, for rock.
Absolutely.
And as the 80s came, were there great albums released? Absolutely, there were. But being that we were part of that scene, I was pickier about the other bands that were putting records out, and I think Def Leppard, is the one that really stands out to me in our genre, and the Scorpions as well, that really put out good music. And I think that their producer, Mutt Lange, had so much to do with the fact that, what was written got put out there to the audience in such a brilliant way. Yeah, I think it has a lot to do with it. So, I listen back to a lot of my material, whether it's with TNT or without TNT, and oftentimes I listen to it and say, man, there's such a good song there, and there's such a great, it's so close, it just doesn't quite maybe hit a home run,
Right. And I agree with you with the 70s and so many bands from the 80s. I mean, that's what they were influenced by. They brought that in and just took it to a different level.
Yeah, and a lot of it was overdone and overproduced, and I think that's a lot of what was so cool about the 70s is that, there's definitely something to be said for, the way Led Zeppelin did their first record was they just did a lot of shows. They played all those songs live, and they went into the studio and they recorded the whole album in like 15 hours or something like that, and spent maybe under $2,000 on the whole thing, and one of the best-selling records of all time. So yeah, there's something to be said for the old school way of making a record, where you go in with a producer and you rehearse the music a lot. You play it live, maybe at least in the rehearsal studio. Producers there, you're really working the kinks out as a band, and then you kind of go in and you nail it. And I think that I think a lot of records are missing that energy today, and I think that's what I appreciate that about some of the artists that are around now, like Jack White. I know Lenny Kravitz is not a new artist, but that approach of going in with your band well rehearsed and kind of trying to get a bit of a live energy going, I think is really the best way to record a good hard rock album. And
agree.
I think with today's, I'm in America, my band's in Europe. It's not an easy thing to do, to get in there and do it old school. But I do think that is ultimately the best way to do it.
I agree with you. It brings us, that it brings a live feel to it, like you said. The elements, and you can tell that in the recording as well.
Yeah, you can always go in and fix overdubs. In a perfect scenario, everybody's isolated, so you're in a separate space, but you're looking at each other. And I've done a bunch of records that way. Did the Morningwood album like that, with all the players, and we were all in separate rooms, but we played live. And almost that whole record is almost the meat of it is live, and then overdubs,
Right.
And I just think, you capture an energy that you just cannot duplicate sometimes. When you're overthinking it and you're being too, I don't know, mechanical, I guess is a good word.
Right.
Yeah. A lot of records are done long distance now. Does it work? Yeah. It can work. But I do think that they take longer. They take longer because you have to get more. There's more communication that has to take place over the, over Skype or over the phone line or whatever the case may be. And if you're really, really in touch on a daily basis with your partners, wherever they may be in another city or another country, it can work beautifully. But if you are not on the same wavelength and you're not really connecting, on a daily basis when you're working, you become very disconnected, and then the music can start to sound that way as well. So it's kind of what we're going through right now, and we're just kind of trying to reel it back in and bring it back to what we originally started doing when we started writing the songs, because there's a lot. I'm actually feeling like this is potentially maybe one of our best albums. It's just a matter of what we're figuring out now is how to actually get it recorded in such a way and mixed in such a way where it actually, we get all of the things we envisioned come to fruition in the end. Yeah.
No, I've been hearing a lot of good things. I mean, just just in the press and everything about the feelings of this new album and how you feel, like you just said, one of the best records to date, and that's saying a lot, because you have done some tremendous things in the past.
I really hate saying that because everybody says it. Everyone always thinks their newest record is the best thing they've ever done.
Absolutely.
I'm hesitant to go there, but like I said, if the songs get recorded the way they deserve to be recorded, I certainly see that as a possibility. Now, hey, but you have to understand something. When people look at TNT or any legacy type band, they've got heavy memories associated with the old music. So no matter how great an album we put out in 2017 or 2018 or whatever, it's very hard for people to take that new record and embrace it and create new memories and new feelings around that. No matter how amazing it is, it could win every award and be coveted and praised and great critiques and so forth. But it could be even technically 10 times better than anything we've ever done. But the memories aren't there, and I can relate to that because I'm sorry, but if you put on, if I'm driving and some classic Hotel California comes on, or Fleetwood
Right.
Mac tune that I love comes on, or
Right.
A classic Elton John song, or whatever. I can remember it brings me right back to some point in my, teenage years or whatever,
Right.
and gives me an instant emotion and an instant feeling, and there's no way to kind of compete with that. So
Right.
people always say, oh, can't you just make an Intuition 2 or Telling the Tales 2? And I always say, not really.
Right.
I say, no, you can't, because it would be like asking the person that asks me that. It would be like saying, well, can't you go back and find I don't know, wear the same clothes that you wore in 1985, or
Right.
Feel the same way that you do now about something you did back then. It's impossible to duplicate a mental
Right.
and emotional state that you were in 30, 40 years ago, or 20 years ago, or even 10 years ago. So,
Exactly.
And a lot of the music that's created is let's face it. You can go and try to copy something. I've heard people do that before. It never works out. When bands go in and say, we're going to make a classic record, it sounds like a kind of a paint by numbers usually.
Right.
Is what it sounds like. It sounds like a parody of what they used to be.
Right.
And the emotion is gone. So I would rather take a chance and veer off into a little bit more of a creative space of where we are today, and take a chance that the fans will come along,
Right.
knowing full well, let's be quite honest, that when we go out on tour, no matter what we record, the bulk of our set is going to be old material. So
Right.
even if we put out a classic record, we'd be lucky to play 2 songs off of that live,
Right. Right.
and that's when everybody would be going for a beer anyway. So
When you say that, it's really a shame, because the new songs they should embrace. I mean, like you said, they have to get a memory tied to it, and it seems like the younger generation now is starting to revert back to that, the classic music, and bands like TNT and Def Leppard and all that stuff. You're seeing younger kids and a younger group at the concerts, and that's what we've been seeing, and I think that's great.
Yeah, we've been seeing it for years now. I mean, I started seeing it back in the early 2000s when TNT was touring a lot, and started to see younger and younger fans come in, and now it's the same thing. I would say it depends on if we do. It's such a strange thing. Like when we do the Monsters of Rock cruise, that's a very different situation, because you've got people that have to be able to afford to pay for an expensive cruise, which lasts, for 5 days. And
Right.
so you're not going to see a lot of young people on something like that. But a lot of the festivals we do, and a lot of the shows we headline, where they allow, a younger audience to come in, which they do often in Europe,
Right.
man, I would say 1/3 to 1/2 of the audience is young. And we love that. They're kind of bright-eyed, and they're right up front, and their eyes are wide open, and they're like, wow. It's kind of like they're seeing they're seeing that their parents' heroes or something for the first time. So it's
Right.
yeah, it's pretty cool. We're starting to see like second generation, and probably even third generation at this point. We've been around for 35 years, so I'm sure that
Right.
that grandchildren are showing up at this point. It sounds, God, that makes me feel old. But,
It's crazy to even think that. Yeah, it really
Yeah.
is. It really is. And you're headlining the Frontiers Festival this year next week. And that's really neat to see that.
Next week already? Geez, yeah, right. I guess it is. Day 2. It's kind of cool. It's sort of a one-off. We were hoping to have the record out in time for that, but it didn't work out that way. We're very picky. We'd rather piss everybody off, including the label and the fans, and wait till we have something that we're proud of, rather than just throw something out there because there's a deadline.
Right.
So
I agree.
And I mean, hey, how long did Def Leppard take between records in the '80s? I mean, and it didn't really hurt them. So
right, 3-4 years.
Fact,
You're right.
I think they re-recorded, if I'm not mistaken, Hysteria at least twice, if not more.
You're right.
Yeah,
they definitely did.
So sometimes you just got to do it till you get it right.
Yeah, and the stuff that you've already released, in the past is quality material, and you that's what you thrive on. You want to put out the best, not only for the fans, but for yourselves.
Yeah, I think at this point, with the way the music business is, the tour is everything. And so it used to be that the tour supported the record, and the record is where you really would be, you're trying to drive the record up the charts and so forth with the tour. And, to some degree that's still true. And, I could see that with younger artists that are now, pushing their way up there. Everything is just so different, it's so dramatically different. What it takes to get on Billboard now versus what it took when we were doing it, and how high you can raise, you can be on the charts with less sales and more airplay than the old days. It was always a combination of the two, but back when we hit the Billboard charts, for us to get up to 99 or 100 on Billboard on the Hot 100 album charts, we had to sell a lot of records.
Right,
I mean,
right.
You're talking 250,000 albums to get, to the 100 out of 200 up to 100. And now, if we sold 250,000 records in a matter of a month, we'd probably be in the top 10 or 5.
Right.
So, things have definitely changed. It's weird.
It is. It's amazing. Yeah. What was one way is the opposite now.
Right. Well, yeah. So I missed. So my point really is that you make your record to kind of fuel the tour, to make people kind of feel like, oh, they have a new record out, but they really don't care that much about the new record, and they really don't care about hearing, that many songs from it. So It's kind of just, to me, it's sort of like, as a creative person, I want to make a new record, but on the other hand, it's a bummer so few people really hear it, and you put a lot of work into it, and it's kind of like, but,
right.
So part of me, as a solo artist, I would love to write and record and just put records out for my own pleasure and for, my small dedicated fan base who love everything that I do. And we just have a love fest going back and forth,
Right.
But for TNT, it's a lot of work to put a good album together for people who really just want to see us play live. And so I'm sure I'm not alone when there's a lot of bands have come out lately saying, why should we bother making new music?
You're right.
White Snake and a bunch of other, although he did go back on his word, and I think he is actually making a new record because
right, I think they are.
I know for a fact that he is. But I can see people coming to that point, because we're selling concert tickets, and we just did in January. We had a sold out tour with no new album. So
right.
Yeah. So it really becomes just our own need to be creative, and the fans just wanting to know that it's there. I think that we're still, I guess, viable, and we're trying to make new music. So,
and hopefully they embrace the the new stuff here pretty soon. I hear that from a lot of bands though. Like you just said, that they just go out and tour, and people still want to hear the classics regardless of what you do. And you're right.
You could come out. You could open your show and throughout the show litter some new 1 or 2 new songs, or 3 at the most. And again, that's when people are going to be going, well, if you start your show with it, then they're going to be excited because if it's a good song and has a good beat and a good energy, they'll be excited just to see you pop on stage.
Right. So
opening song is a good place to put a new song. But generally speaking, after that, they're off having a beer
Right.
until you play the hits.
Right.
So, yeah. So the shows we've been doing have been just basically littered with the songs they want to hear.
Right. Now, are you gonna throw a new song out at the festival at all?
No, I don't think so. We're just not ready. So I think we're just going to play the hits. And we're going to do the set that we just did in January. We'll probably do a very similar show to what we just did over there. And, just do what we do best and try to put on a good show. And it's kind of just, recognizable song after recognizable song.
It's all good stuff. And
Yeah.
what I wanted to ask you is what were the early days like? I mean, when you guys started out, like Knights of the New Thunder, and like the band coming up and just starting.
I just think we were very young and, came from two totally different worlds. I mean, it was an American joining a Norwegian band, which was, very unusual.
Right.
So it was kind of two worlds colliding. The first album was me, getting this offer to join this band who had a record deal in Norway, and they had a record recorded, but I could, I was kind of free to manipulate the songs a little bit to fit my voice. Actually manipulated them quite a bit.
Right.
But kept the essence of what was there. If I liked the hook or whatever, I couldn't have a lot of time to I didn't want to rewrite everything.
Right.
But
Right.
So it was kind of an interesting way to get started, where I had this basically a record that was pretty much done, and I just had to go in and tweak things a little bit and record the vocals, and there we were, and then we went on tour, and we started to grow, and things started to evolve, and before we knew it, we had a record deal out of the U.S., and then we were, pretty quickly recording Tell No Tales, and that's when I actually started to, I guess, put my stamp on things.
Right.
Listen to Your Heart was the first song that Ronnie and I sat down and wrote together, and we thought, when we finished it, we thought, well, this is definitely different and original sounding, and we were very encouraged about that, and we thought, well, this is kind of a cool combination of American melody, lyric kind of ideas mixed with the European classic, hard rock sound.
Right.
I always it's funny because we just announced that we're opening for the Scorpions in November at the big arena in Oslo, and it's always interesting to me.
Right.
It's kind of a great, fun, and incredible thing for me on many levels, because I kind of grew up, very much after Judas Priest. I think Scorpions were probably my favorite,
Right.
hard rock band. And I always kind of, when I first heard Knights of the New Thunder, I just sort of heard when it that first riff of Seven Seas, I just kind of heard like, wow, this is kind of like Scorpions meets Van Halen meets
Right.
it just had all these, it was just really classy, it was like super, I always saw the Scorpions as a very classy hard rock band with great riffs and great chord progressions and a really great singer. And
Right. Exactly.
when I heard Ronnie the first time, and I heard the sound and the production of the band, I thought, this is absolutely exactly what I've been looking for, so I think it's really cool that we're getting to play with them, because I always sort of compared early TNT to Scorpions in a certain way.
Yeah, that's a great show too. That'd be a great show to.
Yeah, I wish we could, tour, do a whole European tour or something with them. We're not big enough to play in America with them. That's why they got Megadeth. But it'd be fun to do more than one, that's for sure. But I'm happy with the one. I'll take it.
Right. Yeah. Get the word out there for you guys too. And this year's the 30th anniversary of Tell No Tales, which is it's an incredible album.
Thank you. Yeah, it's 30 some odd minutes of just kind of get in and get out. Wanting more. It's amazing that we got away with making such short albums. I think Nights was even 28 minutes, if I'm not mistaken, and
right.
And Telling the Tales was a little bit over 30, and then I think we got a little bit longer with Intuition, and then started to get the pressure to make longer records after that. But
right.
I don't know, there's something to be, I mean, the Beatles made a lot of records that were probably about that long, and I don't know, there's something to be said for 30 minutes of hit you over the head with really cool stuff rather than
right.
an hour. An hour of, it's not many people who can make an hour of music that stays interesting. Obviously people have done it. Elton John, Fleetwood Mac, Eagles. So, I can name quite a few, but it's not often.
Yeah, to be able to put something together in 30 minutes and keep it, what you did on that album too. I mean, just look at every song. Everyone's a star, and and Listen to Your Heart you mentioned. Desperate Night. And one thing I always loved about you, Tony, was, your voice is amazing. It's pretty much everything that you sing on is tremendous. It's different, and it's great to hear, a singer like yourself with that much passion. And that comes across in everything that you do, and it's incredible.
Oh, thank you. I don't know, I guess it was just always there. I never wanted to just be, Rob Halford was probably the main reason I decided to finally become a singer, but he wasn't really he was more my metal rock influence, but my real influences came before I heard him. My real heart, gut influences were, Paul McCartney and
right.
Glenn Campbell, going back to when I was very young, a young
right.
boy. And like I said, the Beatles, and Led Zeppelin, and Aerosmith, and all the 70s rock and all that stuff, and Foreigner and Boston and blah blah blah, and on and on and on. But when I heard Halford, I kind of thought, being a skateboarder and a surfer and liking extreme things, and my mother was an opera singer, when I heard him, I thought, well, I had this thing in my head where if it wasn't extreme and amazing and crazy, it wasn't worth doing.
Right,
so
right.
I kind of thought, if I'm just going to go out and be just another guy singing, it's not worth it. But if I could do that, if I could really go over the top and just be like completely, just somehow touch even closely towards what he was pulling off, it would be worth it to give it a shot. So
right.
That's when I kind of started to dig in and try to emulate that stuff until I could get it right. And, but the passion, yes. I never wanted to be, what I often hear way too much is just these really great voices with great ranges and I just don't get anything out of it. People will say, oh, this person's so great, or this person's so great. I'm like, I don't know, I just don't hear I would rather hear a guy with 5 notes in his range who is pouring his heart out than I would, rather than hear somebody with a 4 or 5 octave range that just has no vibe and no emotion, and they're just technically perfect, but there's this terrible lyrics and no vibe there, and just doesn't do anything for me. So
exactly.
The passion part's always been important. I think as I grow older, the lyrics have gotten deeper and the passion's gotten deeper as life. I always tell people, that I work with, whether it's as a producer or people, young artists I mentor, that I can walk away. I can literally not sing for several months and just live my life and experience ups and downs that most people experience as they go through their daily life.
Right.
And when I go back to sing again, I take all that stuff with me. Every painful moment, every beautiful moment comes into my voice and gets expressed in the songs. And And that's a very big part of singing. It's not just about making sure that your voice is working right. It's technically working okay. In fact, some of the best vocal performances come from when your voice is not in top shape,
right?
And you're just pushing through it anyway.
Right.
You know, I refer to Paul McCartney's live version of Maybe I'm Amazed, when you can obviously hear the touring vocal fatigue. But my God, what an incredible vocal performance, where there's just this rasp and this, you know, great moments, these great moments coming through. You just can't teach it, can't buy it, it just either is or it isn't, you know.
Right. And you know, talking about this, I wanted to bring up one of my favorite songs that you did. And it's on My Religion. It's perfectly.
Oh, thank you.
I mean, really, Tony, that song. There's certain songs that I can listen to, and it just kind of just goes right into your soul, and that's one of them, man. It's just a great performance, and one of my favorite songs, definitely.
Well, it's definitely one of my favorites, and it's certainly one of Ronnie's favorites. He talks about it all the time. He thinks it's the best song we ever wrote. And yeah, it's just one of those, you know, it's just one of those things. It didn't get any more writing attention than any other thing that we did. In fact, it was probably written very quickly. Most of the better things that we've done were written and recorded quickly, to be honest.
Right.
Yeah, and that one was both. It was written and recorded pretty quickly, and you know, I don't really know what to say about it other than it's just a magic moment.
Right. It's
of you know, of everything just kind of working, you know, and coming together. Yeah, I love that one too. Beyond. It's definitely one of my favorites, so I appreciate you pointing that one out. Yeah, it's a nice moment in TNT's history, and unfortunately, I wish more people had, you know, were exposed to that song. In fact, I strongly feel had the album My Religion been released in, let's say, you know, in 91 or something, or 92, instead of Realized Fantasies, that probably would have been our huge breakthrough, massive album. I'm pretty sure.
Right, it was. I mean, just track for track, all the way through it was it was excellent. I mean, just, you know, Lonely Nights, you know, just some of the great songs on there. I agree with you too. I mean, that is really good.
We were on a roll. We definitely had a very good creative little period there. We had a great team. Again, our keyboard player was working closely with us. Tommy Hansen in Denmark did a fantastic job mixing. He'll be mixing this album, this new one as well. And but yeah, it was. I'm super proud of that one. When people ask me what's your favorite TNT record, I don't hesitate to say My Religion. By far.
It is. It's a great album. And how about, you know, some of the you know, the side projects you did, and I have them right in front of me right now, is Westworld. I really loved, you know, everything that you did on there.
Great band. Yeah, great band. Mark Reale was, you know, Ronnie was, I was very spoiled having Ronnie as a writing partner, but I think Mark was definitely, you know, was wonderful to write with, and so generous, and he really allowed me to be very free. I brought a lot of ideas to the table. I could literally hum a riff to him, and he would pick right up on it and run with it. And you know, just a very kind, sweet, you know, generous person to work with, and a hell of a guitar player. And
absolutely,
yeah, I'm real proud of it. In fact, the second Westworld record, it was so driven by my energy. I had a lot of energy towards writing that album, and he just kind of went with my energy. You know, albums are like that. I can go through the TNT records, and I can tell you album for album which one was more driven by Ronnie's energy, and which one was more driven by my energy. And and the Westworld stuff was kind of like that too. The first album was sort of all of us getting to know each other, and being a little bit, a little just kind of checking things out, and seeing how things would go and trying, But that second record, I could easily call that my first solo album, Skin.
Right.
That's kind of exactly what I would have done if I were to have done, a rock solo album. It would have probably sounded like that,
Right.
And then Cyber Dreamer is amazing. I love that record too for different reasons. It's different than the other two. I think Bruno Ravel did a great job producing it, and it's got a little bit of a cleaner, more commercial sound. So I think kind of the first album is more retro 80s, and I think the second album kind of is more of has more of a 90s/70s vibe.
Right.
Which is definitely more me. And then Cyber Dreamer again goes back to a little bit more of an 80s sound. So I was really, really proud of that band, and was really hoping that it would kind of pop open. And I think had we had that run of 4 records, maybe 5 or 10 years after we did,
right,
probably that band would have done a lot more and started playing festivals, and maybe would have even been something that would be a real viable project today. But of course we lost Mark a few years ago, and that was super sad. Huge talent. And
Absolutely.
Going back to me as a kid again, going back to Riot,
right.
All those records were especially Fire Down Under was a big record for me as a becoming metalhead. Yeah,
that was a great album.
Yeah,
and a lot of stuff that he did too was that Riot did and Mark did was amazing. I mean, it really was. It seemed like every time they brought something out, it just got a little bit better.
Yeah, for my taste, excuse me while I chew. For my taste, I really preferred the first singer that they had. Fantastic. And I feel embarrassed that his name escapes me right now, but...
Was it Rhett Forrester?
No, he was the second singer.
Rhett was the second, you're right. I'm trying to remember the guy's name, though.
Yeah, I feel terrible about it, but he was the one on Fire Down Under and Narita, and the first few albums. I think Rhett's first record was the that kind of cowboy vibe album that they did, the first one. But he was great. He was great too. He was a great front man. Oh, really, really rivaled David Lee Roth in some ways, I think, as a front man.
Right.
But that first singer was absolutely fantastic. And yeah, so anyway, yeah, it's great working with Mark, and also, with Bruno. And Bruno is a hell of a talent. And John O'Reilly, the drummer from, who's now playing with Trans-Siberian Orchestra, but who was in Blue Oyster Cult, and he was in, just a slew of big bands. Just a great classic drummer, in the John Bonham school, of drumming. And it was a really great project. I'm very, very proud of those records. So
I remember, when I first got the, Skin album and hearing Uneasy, that's my favorite song from it. I remember days just driving to work and throwing that in and probably listening to that song 5 or 6 times.
Yeah, really I like that one too, and that was a great one to work on. That's a great example too of how things can change when you get into the recording studio. We, from what I recall, we had written it, and we had a totally different chorus melody. And when I went in to record the vocals, I thought, I really don't like this melody. Maybe I can leave the music like it is and write something totally different. I've done that many times,
right.
And so I rewrote the entire chorus melody. And when everybody heard it, I just took the liberty of doing it, and everyone heard it and said, "Oh God, this is much better than what you had." So, luckily, usually when I do that without telling anybody, it works out in my favor. But thankfully,
Yeah, nobody's going to tell you no.
Magnus Carlsen, who works with me on the Starbreaker stuff, he always tells me, you're the only guy that I allow to, when I send music, that I'm okay with you, like, just taking the music and doing, because he always has a full song in mind,
right,
with melodies and everything, and I always tell him, send me two different things. Send me the music with no vocal ideas, and then send me a version with vocal ideas. And I go to the one without first, so I'm not influenced by anything that he did.
Right.
And then if I get stuck, I then go refer to things that he did, and then I may combine the two, or I may just not use anything he did, or I may use everything that he did and write lyrics, my own lyrics to it.
Right.
So works different ways.
It's amazing some of the people that you've worked with too. Like you just mentioned Magnus, and he's incredible, and also the Starbreaker, another great album.
Yeah, those two records are I'm proud of as well, especially the second one. I really love because we kind of developed a little more and just kind of took it someplace else. I love the first one too, but the second one for me is just has, again, the second one is kind of like the second Westworld record. It's sort of like
right,
just has a little more depth to it for me personally as a singer, than the first one does.
Now, like speaking of Magnus and some of the other guys, is there any other projects that you have down the road? I mean, working with these guys again, like Magnus and Bruno.
We do have a Starbreaker record that we're supposed to do. We'll see what happens with that. I really want to complete a solo album. I've got so much material, and then there's a bunch of stuff I want to write. I have a very specific project in mind, right, that I'm waiting to sort of put the pieces together for and make an announcement about it. But I'm pretty excited about that. If I can put all the pieces together, I think it's going to take a lot of work. It's a big project. It's not just a record. Right. It involves a couple of different ideas. So I would say it's more of a multimedia project than it is just a record, but
cool.
Something I very much want to do. And but for today, I have a TNT record to finish, and I've got a lot of shows coming up with TNT starting in June throughout the rest of the year, pretty much. So I've got my hands full.
Yeah, it's a lot of work.
No doubt about that.
Now, is there any plans for TNT with U.S. dates?
We had a couple of agents working for us. It didn't work out yet, but it's actually okay because I think 2018 is going to be a year for us to approach the U.S. market again. I know we have. It's frustrating for me because I post all these great things online that we're doing overseas, and all the fans over there are like, yeah, and then the ones over here just go, they're starting to get pissed. They get really pissed off, and they just like kind of go, well, what about us? And I'm like, well, if I had it, and I understand, but it's as a fan, they don't understand the logistics, right, that go behind bringing maybe 8, 9, 10 people from Europe over to the U.S. and actually doing a full-fledged tour. So
right.
It's expensive over here. We're not a big band. We sold more records in America than we did anywhere else, but people need to understand that it's a bigger country than everywhere else. So if we did right. 250,000, somewhere between, for each album, let's say we sold all told maybe 1 million plus records in America with all of our albums combined, and probably about 3 million outside of America. People need right. to understand that, that just does not, this many years later, it just doesn't make it easy. We're not getting huge, and again, people could listen to me right now and say, oh, he's in it for the money. Well, I mean, it's my job. So I'm not, quote, right. in it for the money. None of us are, quote, in it for the money. We're in it to put food on the table, just like anybody else who gets up in the morning and goes to work and comes home at night and has children and a wife and a house and you know, the whole 9 yards. So there's no difference in us wanting to make money doing what we do than a person who goes to an office or any other job every day to put food on the table and take care of their children and their wives and so on and so on. So it just is not. We've crunched the numbers so many times trying to work out the U.S. tour, and it just is. It hasn't been the right time yet. So we need to be very calculated about it, and we need to figure out how we're going to do it. We all want to do it. Nobody wants to do it more than me because I'm the lone American in the band. So I'm the one that wants to do it the most. I want to have the thrill and the glory of performing for my own people here, you know, like we did back in the 80s. So there was no bigger thrill for me than playing the Greek Theater in LA and Madison Square Garden in New York and, you know, hitting all of these venues where I lived and where I grew up and so on. So I'm the first one that'll tell you I can't wait for the band to get over here. It's just... how do we do it?
Right, and a lot of the bands that we've talked to, you know, that's the same thing that they've been saying. It's logistically is almost impossible. Now, is it?
Yeah.
How much different is it, you know, nowadays than it was back in the, you know, in the glory days, back in the 80s, to do something like that?
Well, you know, first of all, we had you know, we were on the biggest label in the world with. You know, we were on Mercury Records, and which is Universal Music, and we had a lot of support from them. We had a lot of firepower behind us, so we could afford to jump on to, you know, the Stryper Loudness tour. We could afford to jump on the Twisted Sister Great White tour. We could, you know, we headlined our own very successful tour in '89, playing pretty big venues. You know, we were selling out, you know, averaging about 1,000 to 3,000 people per night. You know, some were a little less. You know, and but I mean, it's pretty good for our first headlining tour, and we finished up with a round of shows on the East Coast that were all sold out, packed, and broke attendance records and so forth. And then we just never came back. So we left on a high note. We didn't sort of fizzle out. But what we should have done is stayed in the States and jumped on to immediately on the Intuition album. We should have jumped right on to Opening for Somebody and released another video. And unfortunately, due to management decisions and label decisions, we were, you know, kind of snuffed out each time from getting to that next level. It happened on the Tell No Tales tour, and it happened on the Intuition tour. Intuition was an interesting situation because as we were wrapping up the U.S. tour, we got the phone call that we had exploded in Japan. So we went over there to an incredible experience of finding ourselves being superstars in Japan out of nowhere, and that was really fun, and made us feel like, you know, okay, things aren't so bad, you know. But then we came back to the U.S. and realized that you know, they weren't so great. So, you know, after all, then we switched over to Atlantic Records and started making Realized Fantasies, and things just kind of fizzled at that point. And then we had our little breakup in '92 after we put that record out and played Japan, which was our only full tour. Was a sold out, very successful Japanese tour, and then we kind of. Took about a 5 or 6 year break at that point.
Yeah, I guess you just got to the point where, you know, you were worn out, and the creative. It's hard to be creative and everything the way you need to be.
We felt a bit defeated. We felt a bit defeated. We felt like, wow, we have, you know, just busted our asses for close, you know, about 10 years.
Right.
And where's the, you know. We didn't look. I'm not going to say where's the mansion and where are the sports cars, but where's the, you know, is it okay if I own a house or an apartment, or even a car, or can I have anything? Can I just have a life,
Right.
So it was to be, edging towards 30 at that point. I guess by the time we put out Realized Fantasies, we were all in our late 20s, or at least Ronnie and I were.
Right.
And you have to remember, we were one of the younger bands. So when Nights came out, I was 22 and Ronnie was 21. And in America, in Europe, I was 21 and he was 20. So, we were one of the younger bands when we first started to break. So we were kind of in the game a little bit ahead of some of the other bands. So by the end of the 90s, we were still in our late 20s. So, starting to feel but we had worked so hard, just album tour, and just didn't really see the payoff that we were hoping for. And we didn't have these expectations of being, rich and successful so much as we just wanted to have enough behind us that we could continue moving upward, and not feel as though all of the support was waning, which was exactly what happened,
Right. That's when the 90s hit in, and that's when grunge came in.
And again, I can't remember the timing, but as I recall it, we put out Realized Fantasies, and it just seemed to me that somewhere within the weeks of releasing that record, Nirvana's single hit MTV, and I remember very clearly watching MTV, seeing that song, and I knew immediately the minute I saw that song, I thought, it's over for us. It's over for us and all of our peers. It's over now. This is the new thing.
Right.
And everyone else got really bitter about it. The one thing we could have done differently that a lot of the smarter bands did was they went and focused on Japan, because Japan was really not having the grunge thing. They were like, man, okay, let's put all of our money into 80s rock. And so the smarter bands started to get bigger and bigger in Japan, and they were actually able to sustain their lives off of Japan alone. Some of them were getting $1 million record deals and doing more extensive touring over there, like Yngwie Malmsteen and a few other acts like Mr. Big and so forth. And that kind of kept them alive, through the 90s anti-80s rock movement, as you would say. But I kind of was artistically very intrigued by what was going on musically. So I was one of the few that didn't get all bitter. It would have been better for my bank account had I embraced the whole thing and either got TNT to embrace Japan and continue on over there, or created my own 80s sounding act to take advantage of the Japanese thing that was happening and would have made a fortune. But instead I kind of rebelled against my own genre and started to really embrace all the music I was hearing, being a creative person, and really started getting into I was into a lot of the bands that were coming out of Seattle. I was into a lot of the music that was generally being released, and I thought it was interesting and fresh, and changed my style of writing, and in many ways made me a better artist, I think, what happened in the 90s. So, again, I suffered financially, but I think I grew artistically from it. So.
And and everything that you've done, you're saying bringing in the different elements, from the different eras and everything and it made you stronger, and it gave you staying power as well. I mean, nowadays, the people that were fans back in the 80s have stuck with you, and probably making new fans right now as well with the some of the side projects if you've done, because they're all different. They vary different ways, and I think that's great.
Yeah, what I try to do from time to time on my Facebook page, I'll just throw up a song I know a lot of the TNT fans haven't heard, and often what I'll get when I look down the thread and I look at everything everybody says is, half of them will say, I love this song, I have it, I've been listening to it for a while. And then other people will say, wow, this is great. I've never heard this before. So, I like to do that from time to time to expose people to something they, a totally different side. I remember most people, when they think of me, they think the high-pitched, girly-sounding singer from the 80s with the long blonde hair. And I know about 4 years ago or so when I started to talk to, became friendly with Mike Portnoy.
Right.
And we were talking about, doing something together at one point. He actually dug in and listened to a lot of the side stuff. I sent him some things that I had done outside of TNT since the 80s, leading up to the current times. And
right.
He was like, wow. He's like, this is so completely different and so cool. And I love the way you're singing, and I love your lyrics and melodies and the vibe and the energy. It's not what I would have expected at all. And I'm like, yeah, well,
right.
I naturally kind of grew up, and that I think that's been my biggest struggle, is to kind of like I like being a part of TNT because it's something that it's my legacy. It's something I've been doing for a long time, and I love performing those songs for the fans because it makes them so happy,
Right.
But from an artistic standpoint, there's a part of me that when I'm on stage playing TNT songs, it's the greatest thing in the world because I can feel their love for the music.
Right.
Makes me have a great time on stage.
Right.
But from me, the artist in me
right.
has moved so far beyond the music that I'm into something, I'd like to develop something completely and utterly, and I have with other music I've done, and I'd love to continue growing and evolving and developing other things. Right. And most people don't know that about me, and so I do work to expose people to it, as much as I can. So.
Right. Well, you're an artist. You're never going to grow if you're doing the same thing, and you like to expand, and it like I said, the stuff that you do outside of TNT, is fabulous. It's great to hear, the different sides of you. I think it's a good thing for the fans.
Well, thank you. And there are times where I get burnt. This is actually, I would say, this is the longest I've ever gone without releasing anything. It's been about 3 or 4 years since I've really put out any new music, and it's really just burnout. I think I just came to a point where I put out the Wildflowers record and maybe a single after that, and then I just literally got burnt out on. It's not that I didn't continue writing and working on ideas and lyrics and different things, but I just kind of got for the first time in my creative life that I can remember, I never usually let more than a year go by before putting something out, and this is the longest stint that I've had, and I think it's just literally burnout,
right.
And disappointment and a lot of different things, but that'll change, and I'm sure I'll pick it up and get more prolific again soon, and probably put out. There'll probably be a year where maybe I put out 2 things or 3 things or something. I have done some guest appearances recently, and I'll probably continue to do that.
Right.
But I'm definitely hungry to get into the studio with no constraints and no handcuffs and no shackles, and really just kind of dig in and work.
Right.
It's tough with the TNT thing because. You've got that thing hanging over your neck a little bit of, we've got to do this or we've got to do that. And Ronnie and I try to kind of ignore that a little bit, but,
right.
So somebody's always there to remind us, don't forget, guys, you're making a TNT record. And we're just kind of like, oh yeah.
Yeah,
right.
yeah.
It's not, like, this isn't, don't take me wrong. That's not like saying, like, I'm not, because I can imagine like hardcore fans right now hearing me say that and go, "What's wrong with this guy?" I don't mean it that. I don't mean it that way. I just mean that hard rock music and hard rock fans can be, they're so loyal, but they can also be, and I am too. I'm the same as they are. I want to hear my band play a certain kind of thing. I expect. A certain thing to come from the bands I love, and if I don't hear that, I'm disappointed by it. But other genres aren't so much like that.
You're right.
It seems like I don't know. I refer to Radiohead or U2 or bands like that, where they're kind of their audience sort of allows them to grow. Muse is another example of a newer-ish band. They're not new, but they're newish.
Right.
Where they put out something kind of different each time, and people kind of expect it and embrace it.
Right.
Whereas if TNT doesn't keep putting out stuff that people kind of can go, oh, there's a TNT song, they don't always dig it.
You're right. You're exactly right. I know it. We're guilty of it.
We took a lot of shit for Firefly and Transistor when we put those out in the late 90s, and now,
right,
after all these years, little by little, people are saying that they were like, the masterpieces and really great, creatively, that we took a lot of chances, and that they love a lot of songs on those records. So
right,
sometimes it just takes time.
Yeah, the audience grows with the band. I mean,
sometimes they have to catch up.
Right.
Sometimes to catch up with something that you did. Yeah, exactly.
That's it.
Right.
That's it. That's amazing. When you say that, I know we're guilty of that too. We think, oh man, why did they do this? And then you listen to the album, 5 or 6 times, and you say, well, this is pretty good.
Mm-hmm. And, I don't know, for me, if I'm a fan of a band, I may not love every record, but if I'm a real fan, I'll listen to it, I'll listen to something enough times where I'll actually I'll start to really love 1 or 2 songs, or, start to gravitate towards something on the record. And then usually from that place, I'll start to branch out and like more and more of the record, than I initially did.
Right.
If it's not a band I love, I don't give it that much of an opportunity or that much of a chance.
Right.
But if it's an artist I really adore, I will go into the record for the first time expecting to love it. And so that gives them a little bit of a leg up with me.
Exactly.
And it gives me the opportunity to maybe embrace something a little different that they were trying to do. It doesn't mean that it's always going to work, but that's kind of how I approach it, with my favorite artists.
Boy, we think exactly alike. Exactly. I mean, I think of that too, and I listen to this stuff and I'm like, well, that's not too bad. And then sometimes I'm disappointed. And then there's even albums where I've thrown in, 3 or 4 months after the fact when it came out, said I'm going to give this another chance, and just end up loving it.
Exactly. Yeah, I remember when Michael Schenker left UFO and they put out No Place to Run with Paul Chapman. I was kind of like, well, how are they going to? I mean, Michael Schenker, come on,
Right.
And I remember getting that record, and I was like very pleasantly surprised at how much I liked it, So.
Right. That's the way it is. That's the way it is sometimes. Now, how about any last words or anything, Tony? Anything that you want to get out to the fans that we can get out there to you for you?
Just thank you for all your years of love and support. It never goes unnoticed. I see, whether I respond or not, I see all the comments on social media. I look at everything. Instagram, Twitter, Facebook. I see everything, and appreciate all the people that stick with me and follow me. And I'm looking forward to a really fun year of touring, and looking forward to getting this new album done, and then moving on into a solo album.
Great.
And just as a side note, I want to just mention everybody out there, give my girl Rachel Lauren a listen. Lauren, Lorin. She's out there killing it and climbing up the Billboard charts with her new song, I Hate You. And she's got more absolutely ridiculously incredible music coming out.
Cool.
Fantastic young singer. There aren't a lot of really special female artists coming out these days, and she's
Right.
and I'm a little biased maybe, but really I wouldn't say this if I didn't feel it from my heart that they're about to get slammed over the head with something that they've never. I've heard stuff that no one's heard yet that she's been working on now, that's been in the works for a while, and they're about to get slammed over the head with some pretty crazy, amazing stuff.
That's
and
cool.
Yeah, so look
cool.
out for her. Look out for her. Follow her on all of her pages, and she's hard to miss. She's quite beautiful. So, but she's got a voice to back it up, and she's really quite the artist. So, just want to give a shout out to her.
You got it. We'll give her. I'm definitely going to give that a listen when I'm done here.
Yeah. And thank you guys. And thank you for interviewing me. And let me know when the interview is done, and I'll stick it out there and promote it on social media.
Well, you want us to send it to a website or a certain place? And we put it together. We put together a video and little nice little with pictures and everything, just to give you a good good professional feed on it, because we want to get you the best that we can.
Yeah, when it's done, I mean, I always, if people are willing, I'd always love to see it first, in case there's something in there that hey, could you take that line out, or
Yeah. Absolutely.
Not everybody's willing to do that, but if I can do that, I always love to have a look at it first before it goes live and say, hey, maybe you could change the wording here or there, or whatever it is. But
sure, I'll do that for you.
Great. You have my email address, so you can just send it to me there.
Okay, sounds good.
Okay,
sounds good.
Well,
all
listen,
right, Tony.
It's a great talking to you. And what is your site called, by the way?
It's www.rockinthefastlane.com. ROCKINTHEFASTLANE. Yep. Yeah.
Where are you guys located again?
Pittsburgh.
Oh, there you go. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Yeah, actually, I think, if I'm not mistaken, I think Rachel is playing someplace down there not too long from now. So,
cool.
Yeah. But anyway, yeah, check her out and send me the interview, and we'll stay in touch.
You got it. It sounds good. Hey, good luck with the new album. Good luck with everything you're doing.
You.
And
thank you, my friend.
You are a mega talent, my man. And I'm going to be a fan forever. Let me tell you that.
Thank you. It means a lot to me. I appreciate it. Thank you so much.
No problem.
Okay. Have a great night.
You do the same. Thanks, Tony.
Okay. Okay. Bye-bye.
Thank you.